Good afternoon again. This is Howard Wig again, Doorae again, and we're going to be talking plastics everywhere and not a cop to shrink. We're going to see a whole bunch of slides. I'm going to talk about them rapidly, and then I'm going to open it up to Doorae, who at this stage of her formidable career is focusing on plastics. So let's start those slides rolling. Albatross. This is Midway Island, an albatross feeding her young. And this is the Midways in the North Pacific Islands, the most untrammeled, natural place possibly left in the world, so that we have a little mini paradise here. Next slide. Another albatross feeding her young. There are literally millions and millions of albatross on Midway Island and then hundreds of thousands on the surrounding islands. This is the epicenter of them. Albatross have great big mouths. Here's one big mother swallowing a crab. The nutrition in Midway and surrounding regions is very, very high because we've rendered this a protected area so that wild animals can grow very, very rapidly. And enter Dr. Charles Ebersmeyer, marine biologist. He took advantage of the fact that a container load of rubber duckies going from Hong Kong to Seattle overturned in a storm, rubber duckies everywhere. He tracked the travel of the rubber duckies and discovered that area in red, the Northwest Pacific Gyre. It's between Hawaii and Seattle. It's about the size of Texas. And in the northern storm, or the winter storms, those debris that accumulates in that gyre blow down to the northwest Hawaiian Islands, and it's a lot more than rubber duckies. Look at this. This is just one accumulation on Midway Island. One of many, many accumulations. Here's more accumulation. And the NOAA people go there and pick it up periodically. Yet more accumulation. It is an incredible, incredible mountain of debris. And here is the result for the albatross. You saw that great big mouth. They mistake the particles or little pieces of plastic for food ingested. It gets lodged in their stomach, and this is the result. This, believe it or not, is another albatross carcass. It looks like there's more plastic than there is carcass. Of course, with all of this in their stomach, they have no room for nutrition, and they die on Midway by the tens and tens of thousands. And you think Midway's bad. This, believe it or not, that little dark spot is a little fishing boat in Indonesia. A man is hunting around in a literal sea of debris looking for anything of value in the plastic world there. That is all plastic. Oh, here's the Indonesian man. And as you can see, there's just seemingly no end in sight. Tens and tens and tens of tons of plastic accumulation. This is throughout Southeast Asia, where they don't have the money to deal with this type of problem. And this is Captain Charles Murphy, who is one of the heroes. Oh, Moore. One of the heroes. He's a yachtsman. He sailed from Hawaii to California, taking a northerly route many years ago. He found himself in a sea of plastic. He's the one who labeled that sea of plastic the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, and he has been devoting his fortune and his life to research and to eradication ever since then. And also dedicating their research is Purdue University. This is a facility they developed to feed in plastic marine debris and create diesel oil. I tried to get this onto the island of Midway so we could do a real test, but it just didn't work out that way. And what did work out, though, is that the Hawaii's fishermen when they're out, they fish in the great garbage patch. They pick up a lot of the net stored on their bow and take it to Pier 38, which is Hawaii's fishing pier. And while it waits there, it can be used as an educational tool. Here's a bunch of school children finding out how tough this net is, and it's just mounds and mounds and mounds of it. Now, periodically, there comes to Pier 38 trucks, great big trucks from Schnitzer Steel, which is the biggest steel recycling company in Hawaii. They load the net up, chop it into bite-sized chunks, and take it to H-Power, our garbage energy plant, and H-Power adds it to their mix of garbage and burns it. And also the same thing happens from the Northwest Islands, NOAA, the
National
Oceanic and Atmospheric Agency goes to the Northwest Islands, picks up that net, brings it to Pearl Harbor, and it ends up in H-Power 2. That debris ends up creating electricity for literally hundreds and hundreds of homes. Hawaii's led the way here. Oregon, Massachusetts, possibly other places on the mainland have now converted net and debris, burned it as garbage and created free electricity. And that's kind of the story of Hawaii and marine debris in a very, very brief nutshell. So take it away, Doorae.
So that was a really good presentation. There's a few things in there just to touch upon, and one of them was the albatross. When you see inside their stomachs, that a lot of the stuff, most of the plastics that they're eating are actually some of the most colorful plastics that they can find in the ocean. And the reason is because it looks more like food, it looks tastier when it's colorful, similar to how humans pick the ripest, most colorful fruits from trees. So that's why a lot of artists who are making marine debris art have a hard time finding purples and reds, because a lot of those have actually been ingested already by animals. So that was an interesting part of the presentation. And just to kind of give a solution-based approach to the fish nets, there's a company called Doorae Skateboards. Have you heard of them?
No, I haven't, no.
It's actually a few young entrepreneurs. I think they're in their 20s and 30s, and they're from California, I believe. And they started a company called Doorae Skateboards, and they actually recycle fish nets from Chile. And they work with fishermen directly. So they have like a direct trade program where they pay fishermen for a certain amount of poundage of fish nets, and they melt it and mold it into skateboards. So it's a really good way. I mean, the energy is one form of recycling, but to turn plastics into something that can be used forever is arguably more valuable than turning it into energy that you can only use for a moment. So that's one solution that young entrepreneurs have found to the plastic pollution problem, to prevent fishermen from dumping fish nets into the ocean. So obviously we could scale that up to an international scale, but right now it's kind of a nice small company based in Chile and California.
Yeah, I saw a program just the other night up at the Modern Museum of Art, and one of the presenters was making these incredible works of art from recycled plastic also.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some amazing art. Actually, the Kokua Hawaii Foundation, we have in our Plastic Free Hawaii program an annual school mural contest. So the children of schools all across Hawaii are encouraged to make art out of bottle caps and other marine debris that kind of share a vision for a plastic-free Hawaii. And so actually our winner this year was Leisure Jordan Academy in Kailua, and they made a beautiful, huge mural, and you could see it was all made with bottle caps that they drilled into wood backing. And you could see details in plumeria flowers, and there's animals and lettering, keep our sea plastic free. They even wrote a song to go with it. So that's an annual thing we do to kind of show students that they can make something beautiful out of plastic to then share the message and do education through art.
And it certainly raises their awareness that there's a heck of a lot of plastic out there.
Yeah.
Waste plastic, yeah.
And bottle caps being harder to recycle than other plastics is a big thing, because it's easy to recycle bottles, but bottle caps for a lot of people are much more challenging to recycle if they can at all. So we're kind of showing people ways that you can use bottle caps before you just have to throw it out.
And does this mural get put in a shopping center or something for a lot of people to see, or?
So the Honolulu Theater for Youth actually featured about 6 winning murals. And so they featured it at their, it was a show that was up for about 2 or 3 months called H2O, the story of water and Hawaii. And it was up there for a few months. So thousands of people who all got to see that play were able to see the murals up on the wall on the set of that show. So it was featured there, but we give them back to the school so they can hang it up. In the school, on school grounds.
Yeah, that'll make the students and the parents really proud, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So plastic-free Hawaii, you've mentioned something about that. What's plastic-free Hawaii and how did it come into being?
Yeah, so it's a program of the Kokua Hawaii Foundation, and it's one of the major programs. And what we do is we do environmental education to youth and into the community. So for the community, we hold regular beach cleanups as well as film screenings and educational events, and we also do outreach at lots of events all around Oahu. And the mission is really to empower and educate people to adopt a zero waste lifestyle and share the benefits of a plastic-free life and the dangers of an earth filled with single-use plastics. So the target is really getting people to learn more about how the single-use plastics they use in their life are negatively impacting their health as well as the life of animals and the earth as a whole. So yeah, we focus on single-use plastics. So that's really, people are always like, but what about like tables and all kinds of other things that are made with plastic? And we really emphasize that it's the single-use plastics that are the most unnecessary and the most pervasive when it comes to plastic pollution. And we see that in beach cleanup data, that it's almost all single-use plastics that are being littered and becoming marine debris. Yeah.
I don't know if you've done any studies on this, but my guess would be just in terms of items, plastic items that are discarded. Number 1 would be plastic water bottles. Number 2, plastic shopping bags. Are those the number 1 and 2?
They've been in the top 5 for a few years now, but the number 1 thing is actually cigarette butts.
Ooh, which because of the filter you count as plastic.
Yeah, because they're throwing out the filter. So the paper part degrades, but the filter is actually made of plastic, which I would hope that most cigarette smokers don't realize they're made of plastic, which is probably why they think it's okay to flick it, because it feels like paper. But yeah, those last a long time in our environment. It takes a long time to break down. So that's the most commonly found thing. In Hawaii, we just passed a no smoking on beaches and parks law. So we're seeing a significant decrease in the amount of cigarette butts we find here locally, but it's still a problem here a little bit, but definitely around the world, that's a big problem.
Well, let's take a short break and then I want to talk about zero waste lifestyle.
Okay, great.
Think Tech Hawaii, Howard Wig with Doorae Shin back in a minute.
Hey, Stan Energy Man here. Make sure you tune in on my lunch hour every Friday from noon until 12:30 at least. Maybe I'll go a little long if you got good stuff to share with you. But we'll talk about energy, all kinds of energy. My favorite is hydrogen, and my other favorite is transportation and hydrogen. But we'll talk about all kinds of energy. Be with us every Friday at noon, Stan Energy Man. Aloha.
Back again, Howard Wig, Code Green Hawaii, with Doorae Shin, environmentalist extraordinaire. Now, we started to talk about zero waste lifestyle, and we talked about obviously plastic water bottles, and what we can do is simply take around our own liquid container wherever we go, and you have one right with you here. And I'm proud to say that I have one in my gym bag also. And another thing we can do, instead of having a lot of plastic, well, we outlawed plastic at the supermarkets now, plastic disposable.
Bags, only at grocery stores,
But
kind of.
the little sidebar there, at my store, instead, they are giving out these huge, thick paper bags, which it looks like one bag takes a third of a tree to. Yeah. So what we need to do, I think you'll agree, is get everyone to
Yeah,
carry their own shopping bags.
reusable bags, yeah.
I go to California, occasionally I forget to bring a bag. I buy something, oh, can I have a bag, please? Sure, that'll be 25 cents, please. Yeah.
That's great.
Simple.
Yeah, taxing behavior that's bad for the environment really
And
changes behavior.
A few trips like that, and people say, oh, God, I forgot. But what I do is encourage my friends I give them bags and bags, because I get them from conferences and things.
Yeah.
Okay, now you've got 3 bags. You've got at least 2 in the car, 1 at home, or reverse.
Right.
You have no excuses.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
It's just building positive habits.
Mhm,
So we do really encourage a zero waste lifestyle, and I think it's challenging for some people because we grow up, in a culture that's so used to convenience and throwing things away. And so often what I teach to the community and to children I talk to in classrooms is that the culture that we're born into is one that we've inherited, right? So we haven't created it, we didn't choose it, but we're born into it, and so everywhere we look is plastics and in cars and all of these other things that are causing huge problems environmentally that eventually affect us. And so I really try to push this message that, if this is a culture we inherit and it's one that we disagree with and we see that it's causing damage both to our health and to the environment, then it's our responsibility to start changing our culture and creating a culture that is more in resonance with our values and that feels good and that's not causing unnecessary suffering in the world.
So, and I'll get into the suffering in a minute. So we eliminate our plastic shopping bags,
Yeah.
we eliminate bottles of water. What else do we do?
So one of the most commonly found things on beaches that are littered and become marine debris is food packaging. And so we all experience that. Even I do my best to go zero waste when I go grocery shopping. But it's very pervasive all over the grocery store. Almost everything's packaged in plastic. There's select things packaged in cardboard and paper, but most of those still have plastic inside. So I would say that the best solution to that is to buy in bulk. And this is there's an access issue to this because it's mostly limited to health food stores like Down to Earth, Kokua, Whole Foods. They have huge bulk aisles where you can buy all your grains and legumes and snacks and teas and spices all in bulk, right? So you can come in and bring your own container, weigh it at the cash register when you come in, and then put your things in it, and then they'll subtract the weight. And therefore you leave with all your groceries, but with no extra plastics. So that's a big behavioral thing that people can adopt to have a lifestyle that's a little bit closer to zero waste.
And in your standard supermarket, the closest we come to that is the produce section.
Yeah.
You get grapes, papaya, whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, and so the cool thing is that nature, for most of our produce, nature has a wrapper, right? So bananas, oranges, avocados, lemons, they all come with natural packaging. So I always find it really interesting that so many people still put those things in their own plastic bags when they're totally encased and secure in their own natural container that's fully compostable. And so you're absolutely right. Produce, which happens to be the healthiest food for our bodies, is already zero waste. So therein lies one of my favorite quotes is that what's good for the planet is also good for you. And so, going zero waste, you'll end up buying more whole foods, which ends up being healthier for your body. So there's a side benefit for ourselves in the process of caring for our environment.
And let me put another twist on the perils of plastic, if you will. The plastic that remains in the Pacific garbage patch or any other accumulation floats very close to the surface of the ocean, susceptible to the UV rays. UV damages our skin, UV damages our rugs coming through the window, UV damages plastics. it breaks down into pieces, and then those pieces get to smaller pieces. And when it gets really small, especially in the North Pacific, there's a little jellyfish called a scalp that ingests these little bits of plastic, and they make great food, the scalps do, for medium-sized fish, which makes great food for the larger fish. Here come Hawaii's fishermen to the great garbage patch, because fish like to hang around where stuff is.
Yeah.
They catch the food, bring it home. Now, what has happened to this plastic that's gone through these generations of carnivores? It is non-digestible and microscopic. It lodges in muscle tissue and in fat.
Yeah.
And guess what happens to us humans when we
Eat
ingest that?
seafood, yeah.
And we're the same as the fishes. It lodges in our muscles and fat and interferes with our endocrine system, one of our hormones. And they're finding now that children are having growth difficulties. Boys don't mature as soon as they usually do. Girls mature too soon.
Really? And they found that that was because of the chemicals from plastic in their bodies?
Yeah, and disrupting their endocrine systems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's huge. And the food chain argument has become more prevalent in recent years because there have been more increased amount of studies done that actually have consistently proven that plastic is found in fish that we're buying at markets. So with that said, that's a big danger to us. So we're seeing that not only are we directly affecting the animals, but we're indirectly affecting ourselves if we choose to be on the part of the food chain that's eating fish. So that's really big. And when I do presentations, I often ask, kids, what is plastic made out of? And most kids, and even often adults, will say, they often say plastic's just plastic. They think it's a raw material. And so I tell them it's actually made of petroleum. And that's very toxic. There's lots of petrochemicals in that on top of the added processing that happens. So all of those chemicals leaching into our bodies through the plastics we use, whether it's styrofoam for plate lunches or cups, styrofoam or plastic cups for coffee, and water bottles, is continuously affecting our bodies and our health. And the water bottle argument's really interesting because we have some of the cleanest water in the whole country. So we're spending 2,000 times more to buy a water bottle, and it's leaching chemicals into our body, and we have this plastic thing that we need to figure out what to do with. When we could just get free tap water, it's virtually free, and it's some of the cleanest water, and it doesn't come with the side effects of plastic chemicals.
And very often, some studies I've seen have indicated that our water, our tap water, Hawaii's, is purer than the water that comes in the bottles.
Yeah.
That's just usually normal water that's been filtered several times.
Significantly, yeah. So on a scale of 1 to 1,000, Hawaii water was rated at around over 900, which is considered excellent. And Fiji water was rated at a 700 something. So the Fiji bottled water is some of the highest end water that people spend so much money on for the high quality is actually worse than the water that comes straight from our tap unfiltered.
And speaking of plastic drinking containers, I'm trying to remember the acronym BPA.
BPA.
Yep, which is bisphenol
A.
Something.
Bisphenol A.
Yeah. And when a plastic bottle is heated, either by the sun or wherever, what happens to the composition of that plastic bottle? As I understand it, some of the BPA is released.
Yeah, it's released
into the water. Yeah.
And it's there's lots of health problems, a whole list of health problems that we couldn't even get into. But the main one is that it's a hormone disruptor. And so it affects pregnant women and new mothers the most because it affects their breast milk, it affects the way newborns and infants are growing up, and it affects the hormones that they're experiencing. So, our most vulnerable populations are the ones that are susceptible to BPA poisoning. And interestingly enough, I just found out that most receipt papers have BPA on them as well. It's different because we're not eating receipt paper, but it's still, we're still coming in contact with it more than we think. And it's just funny that things that we feel like are paper are actually plastic. So plastic has pervaded our lives in ways that we haven't even began to understand yet.
So we've only got a couple minutes, I'm just fascinated by your career. Where do you go from here?
Well, right now I have my job with Kokua Hawaii Foundation, and so I do environmental education directly to schools, classrooms, youth of all ages here in Hawaii, and that's really important to me because I've always wanted to work with kids professionally, so I found myself like in preschools and babysitting, but now it's kind of perfect because I have my environmental mission on top of my exposure to children, because I really find inspiration from kids because they're so pure and they're so much closer to their values because they haven't been so bogged down by all of the societal and environmental issues we face, and so they're so much more open and able to change their behavior, and I find that a lot of kids are actually able to affect how their parents live their lives.
Yeah,
and
they
so,
can go, hey mom, hey dad, what are you doing here?
Yeah, and they'll listen, and the parents will stop using plastic and start changing their behavior too, which is great to see.
Yeah, and then you've got a very, very animated personality, which keeps the kids animated instead of them getting all restless and bored and everything else.
Yeah, we got to keep people excited.
And so is that a full-time job? I can't imagine you just doing that.
It's almost a full-time job, so it keeps me occupied most of the week, but I still do lots of volunteering on the side.
And who do you volunteer with?
Well, I'm right now on the board of Kokua Market, the only cooperative here in Honolulu, and I also serve for the Hawaii Organic Farming Association, and right now also being on the executive committee of the Sierra Club of Hawaii. So a lot of different things are happening outside, it's always fun to immerse myself in community.
And we got 1 minute, little nutshell or elevator speech on what you did at UH while you were there.
Yeah, so as a beginning activist in college, saw lots of styrofoam and decided to join the Surfrider Foundation and start a campaign against styrofoam, and worked with administrators and campus stakeholders and effectively banned styrofoam from being served at food establishments at UH Manoa. So that's been, I'm hoping that had a huge impact on the way marine debris is affecting our beaches and oceans.
Yep. And you also persuaded the UH Foundation to divest themselves of oil stocks, I think?
I won't take credit for that. I was just a small part of it. But yeah, University of Hawaii is one of the largest, it was one of the first largest public universities to divest from fossil fuels.
You know, if we have you back in 2 years, you'll be telling a whole new story and an even greater story.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah. So we need to wrap up. Howard Wigg with Doorae Shin, Think Tech Hawaii. Thank you so much for having your presence here, Doorae.
Thank you for inviting me here.
Thank you. See you next time.